Good day to our students in Assessment in Learning 1. This is our third unit for our course. We have the designing and developing of classroom assessment tools, and we are going to begin with the general principles of testing. As introduced, assessment is in Learning 1 will focus on conventional assessment tools, particularly on developing classroom tests. So for this lesson, we're going to be oriented with the general principles of testing, which are of course aligned with the principles of high quality assessment. So what are the principles of testing, or what are these general principles of testing? First, it is important that as teachers, when we develop classroom tests, we should be able to measure all instructional objectives or all the learning objectives that we were able to cover and as stated in our curriculum. So the tests a teacher writes should be congruent with all the learning objectives focused on in class. It's always been a problem that we encounter from our students saying that hindi naman to na-cover ni teacher or this was not covered in class, this was not discussed, no material was given for this, no activity was done for this. So we always make sure that the contents of our tests are reflective of the instructional objectives that we were able to cover or the competencies and standards found in our curriculum. Also, we cover all learning tasks. So a good test is not focused only on one type of objective, meaning if we were able to cover several objectives, we should try our best to put those objectives in writing as reflected in our classroom tests. It must be truly representative of all targeted learning outcomes. And we can do this by developing one of the tools, which is a very important tool in developing classroom tests, which will be discussed in lesson 3. Third, we use appropriate test items. So test items utilized by a teacher have to be in consonance with the learning objectives to be measured. We try to find the best and most appropriate test items for each type of objective that we will be covering in our tests. Commonly, we have several types of tests. We have supply tests, selected tests, we have essay tests. Okay, those could be our choices for us to be able to select the most appropriate test item for the objectives that we want to assess in our students. Make the test valid and reliable. So based on the principles of high quality assessment, we have validity and reliability. Teachers have to see to it that the test they construct measures what it purports to measure. Moreover, they need to ensure that the test will yield consistent results for the students taking it for the second time. So talking about validity and reliability, this is about the technical accuracy of our assessment tools. I think for validity, commonly we focus on content validity for our classroom tests. But at the same time, we look at, of course, the face validity of our test, instructional validity, and for reliability, we make sure that our test is free from errors of measurement so that the reliability of the test will not be affected. We also have the principle of using the test to improve learning. So this is the principle that is commonly disregarded by many teachers, the using of tests to improve student learning. Again, we know that the primary goal or the primary purpose of doing assessment is the improvement of student learning. For many teachers like me, I use my tests also as a learning opportunity for my students. The test should make students think about what they have covered in class. And when they do that, it's kind of a formative assessment where they monitor their learning in class. Okay? Although it's not during the learning process, but I believe that while taking the test, they are still learning. So test scores also obtained by the students will serve as springboards for the teachers to reteach concepts and skills that the former have not mastered. It was emphasized in the assessment cycle that assessment is not complete without the utilization of results. And as teachers, we need to utilize those results to come up with better learning solutions for us to help our students learn better, know better, do better, perform better, and overall be a better person after the learning process. So, what are the attributes of a good test as an assessment tool? So, these are just some extension of the principles of high quality assessment and the general principles of testing. First is validity. So, we are already familiar with validity. So, we have questions to answer for validity. Does the test adequately sample the intended content? Does it test the behaviors or skills important to the content being tested? Does it test all the instructional objectives of the content taken up in class? So these are our guide questions to ensure the validity of our classroom tests. Second is reliability. So this was again mentioned in the general principles of testing, where it refers to the accuracy with which a test consistently measures that which it does measure. Again, how do we ensure reliability? I mean, we need to minimize, if not eradicate, errors in our measurement. Therefore, we need to carefully prepare our tests so that it will be free from error. Not only the test, but even in the administration of the test and even in the answer key of the test. Because if there are errors on these areas, it is possible that reliability will be affected. Objectivity. So it is the extent to which personal biases or subjective judgment of the test scorer is eliminated in checking the student's responses to the test items, as there is only one correct answer for each question, especially for objective type. There are instances that teachers may be biased in checking the students' tests. So we need to avoid those personal biases. We need to be fair for our students. So for a test question to be considered objective, experts must agree on the right or best answer. It is possible that if the item is confusing, we cannot avoid that because no matter how much we allot time to prepare our test, we could overlook some parts of it, which could make the item confusing for many students. If the item is confusing, we make sure that we discuss the answer with other experts in the same subject area so that we will be avoiding personal biases. This is my personal choice. This is what I believe is the best answer for this confusing item. That is not acceptable. We make sure that we assess objectively our students. Scoreability. It is easy to score or check as answer key and answer sheet are provided. That is also an attribute of a good test if it's easy to score. How about for essay? Of course, how do we ensure the scoreability of our essay test? We provide some rubrics, may it be holistic or analytic. Administrability. It is easy to administer as clear as simple instructions are provided to students, proctors, and scholars. So again, scorability, objectivity, administrability would be important in ensuring the reliability of the test. So all these attributes of a good test go together. We also have relevance, meaning the correspondence between the behavior required to respond correctly to a test item and the purpose or objective in writing the test item. So this is related with validity and at the same time, specifically instructional validity, wherein the test item should be directly related to the course objectives and actual instruction. For example, if in the classroom we simply defined some terms, it is also appropriate that in the test, the item is asking for a definition or it's all about the definition as well. Balance. So as a principle of high quality assessment, we need to find balance on our tests that we prepare. So this is where we have the degree to which the proportion of items testing particular outcomes corresponds to the ideal test. There are instances that we cover this particular topic for 2 days, we cover this another topic for 5 days. We would expect that there will be more test items for the objective that we or competency that we met for a longer span of time. If it's more than if it's 5 days compared to 2 days, there are more items for the 5 days than the 2 days. Efficiency. So this is related with scorability and administrability. It refers to the number of meaningful responses per unit of time. Compromise has to be made among the available time for testing, scoring, and relevance. We need to make sure that our students will be able to complete the test given the time period for our testing. For example, if the schedule for the test is only 60 minutes, what's the maximum number of items that we can give? Is it 60? Is it 50? Is it 70? Commonly, as a practice, I would suggest that 1 minute per item. So if it is a 60-minute test schedule, the maximum for me would be 60 items. But again, we need to consider the capabilities of our students. If they cannot actually complete the 60 items in 60 minutes, we could reduce it to 50 minutes. So we have to consider the capabilities of our students. We also have two important technical accuracy. We have difficulty of the test items. Our objective is to provide a moderately difficult test. It should not be too easy. It should not be too difficult because this is part of or this is related with the second attribute or the next attribute, which is discrimination. So it should be able to discriminate the proportion of good and poor students. Because if our tests cannot discriminate the good and the low performing or the poor performing students, how can we extend our help to the poor performing students if we cannot identify them through our tests? And of course, we have fairness. Again, it's still related with the principle of high quality assessment. So that is the end of the principles or the general principles of testing. In our next lesson video, we'll be focusing on the steps in developing classroom tests.